Hello, 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 and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. All right. If you are listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast, you know that I missed one last week. That is the first time in, oh my gosh, since I started my podcast, I think that I have missed a week. It was crazy. I was gone and I was in Nashville for a couple of days. And then I was in, because I had to speak. It was all work, not fun. I did have fun, but I was not there for vacation. And then I was in Birmingham at our annual think tank. And so I just want to do a little bit of a, hey, what was think tank all about? And get you guys kind of caught up on what's going on. But this was so good. Think tank was so good. And here's why it was good. Because we got back to kind of the basics of IBC, and every presenter that we had was somebody that has been with Nelson or was with Nelson from the very beginning. There were people at Think Tank that were with Nelson before he even wrote the book, and they were learning all about IBC then. So it was so fun to be able to talk to those people, because even though I've been doing this for 13 years and I knew Nelson and I got to spend time with Nelson, I was not there at the very, very beginning 20 plus years ago. And so it was just fun to catch up with those people. But we had one common theme, and that was Nelson's 5 basic principles. And the first one is think long term. This is not about short term thinking. So many people, and I saw this yesterday and got a Facebook message about this yesterday, that, hey, Mary Jo, my financial advisor, my investment guy thinks that this is not good. Because why would I borrow from the against cash value to buy real estate? The numbers aren't ever going to pencil out. Guess what? And then I saw this in an IBC group as well. Somebody said, oh, everybody in this group is telling me not to pay my loan back because I'm going to make more than I pay. I'm going to earn more interest than I pay in the policy. And so, yes, no, first of all, yes, it's going to work if you buy real estate, because we're thinking long term. It's not a short term look. Should you not pay loans back? Because long-term thinking says, oh, look at how much we make in the policy, compounding uninterrupted for the rest of our life. Short-term, we're not making money taking loans. Long-term, yes, we're going to have more money, but we're only going to have more if we pay the interest only. If you're never paying a loan back, then no, that thing is going to collapse on you. But if you guys read Nelson's book, he talks about being a forester. He does that for a reason. That is because he's talking about long-term thinking. Think long-term. Okay, so many people want to say, well, I don't know in the short, this doesn't make sense. This just doesn't make sense in the short term. Well, guess what else doesn't make sense? Your 401k and your IRA. Does that make sense in the short term? No. What do they tell you? Hang in there. It's for the long term. And everybody buys that. But then they hold us to a different standard when we're talking about life insurance and long-term thinking. Okay. Number 2, capitalize. Do not be afraid to capitalize. Nelson talks about that. Put more in if you can. Fund it. Now, so many people also think, Nelson says in his book, we need to capitalize the system. We need to put money in for 3-4 years before we borrow anything out. Now, that's awesome if you can do that, but you don't have to do that, because life insurance companies are giving us a little bit more access to money than they did years ago when Nelson wrote the book. However, if you can, and I have a lot of clients that do that, they put money in for 3-4 years and then they only start to borrow against it. But don't be afraid to capitalize. And remember, capitalization is the cost of insurance. It's going to cost you money to get this thing going. So many people also say, well, Mary Jo, you're making so much commission. Well, guess what? You make money doing what you do too. So that is not even a valid argument. The life insurance company uses the money up front to buy life insurance. There's a cost to buying life insurance. So by all means, you need to capitalize that system. If you started a business, if you started a farm operation, if you've done anything, you know it takes time to get started. This is the same thing. Again, Nelson talks about it in the book, how long it takes a bank to get capitalized and get customers coming in so that they can turn money. It's all part of the process. Okay. Number 3, don't steal the peas. I already mentioned this. For the love of Pete, if you take a loan, you pay it back. This is not free money. And this is really funny because the life insurance company that I write with, they had a gentleman from home office there who was not familiar with infinite banking. And all he kept hearing was, don't steal the peas, don't steal the peas. And finally I said, hey, don't steal the peas. And he goes, what does that mean? Why do I keep hearing it? Because we heard it over and over and over again. And Nelson talks about in his book, if you are going to own a grocery store and you take peas out the back door, you make less because you're not selling them for as much out the front door. Meaning, stop stealing from your own business. You own part of the life insurance company because it is a mutual company. So when you take a loan, you need to pay it back. You don't get to just take that money. Long term, yes, you may. I can't even say that. Long term, if you don't pay a loan and you don't pay the principal, you don't pay the interest and the principal, sorry, you are not going to earn more than what you make in the policy because every year the money compounds. The interest that you owe the insurance company compounds. Yes, you're earning compound interest, but with today's new policies, that's not going to be the case that you're going to earn more than what you are paying. So we want amortizing interest. We want interest that goes down, but we want compounding interest that we earn. It's 2 different kinds of interest. So if you take a loan, you pay it back. You're an honest banker. You're an honest business owner. If you currently are a business owner and you are taking stuff from your business, you are stealing the peas, my friend. What are you costing your business? Because you think, well, I'm the business owner, I can go out the back door. No. Do you let your employees go out the back door with stuff? That's stealing. If you are an employee and you decide that you're going to take pens home and sticky notes and paper, you're stealing from your employer. That is going to come off the bottom line. Guess what? You're not going to get the raise. If you're the business owner and you walk out the back door with goods from your business just lost money. You're stealing the peas. Be honest. What is the difference if you pay for that product and the business has it as income? Nothing. Then when you go to sell the business, guess what? It looks like the business made money. This is super interesting to me that I have been talking a lot lately to business owners who are buying or selling businesses. And when I'm buying a business, if the books don't look good, I'm not going to buy the business. So many of us try to finagle ourselves into 0 tax brackets that when it comes time to value our business, there's no value there. Why would there be a value there? We've always tried to get to zero. And so we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot by doing that. Stop doing that. Make your profit, pay your taxes instead of, and that's different if you want to run everything through your business, but that needs to then be shown on your books. But just taking stuff and never running it through the business, you're stealing the peas. Okay, number 4, don't use banks. Oh, this one was so good. So good as a reminder. Because I talk about all those other things all the time. I talk about don't steal the peas. I talk about capitalization. I talk about long-term thinking almost in every single meeting. But here is the one thing that we don't talk a lot about, and it seems like we forget, is don't use banks. And I talk about it a lot and say, don't make the bank plan A. Make them plan B. If you need them, fine. However, what was Nelson teaching us? Nelson was telling us, get rid of the banks. That's going to get rid of the Federal Reserve. It's going to cut government in half. Nelson had an agenda for what he is trying to do. And the purpose was not to sell life insurance. The purpose was to give the control and the liquidity back to you. And you're borrowing from your company, from the life insurance company. So we don't go to the banks and give them money so they can turn money 10 times. That was the whole premise. Liquidity, control, reduce the Federal Reserve. So many of us forget about that. So many people in this industry are teaching IBC, or they're a form of IBC, and they're arbitraging everything. Oh my God, you can use the policy and you can go buy real estate. You can go arbitrage all this stuff. And guess what? That's not the purpose of what Nelson was saying. Nelson didn't go use the bank as leverage to another loan, right? To buy some real estate or use his policy as leverage for a loan. No. He stopped growing his real estate empire so he could get out of the banking system and he could stop the corruption of what's happening in our banking system. We have to remember that, to me, that's like the biggest piece of everything here. It's not the capitalization of the policy. It's not the think long term. I believe get rid of the bank should be number 1 because we have forgotten. As IBC practitioners, as IBC teachers, so many of us have forgotten and said, oh my gosh, I want to grow my real estate empire. I want to run every penny I have through my policy. We have this huge agenda, and we forget that the agenda is to get rid of the bank. So, do I have loans with the bank? Yes, I have two, because I have really taken this to heart in the last year of saying, you know what, or maybe even the last 2 years. It's probably been about the last 2 years. I'm like, you know what? Nelson said no banks. And I have had, it's just been hell dealing with the banks. And so when he said no banks, I'm like, okay, no banks. Like, look, I'm watching what he did, or I'm thinking back to what I was seeing when he was alive. And he wasn't chasing rates of return. He was not doing anything with the banks. Remember, he said he got rid of the snakes and dragons, and he hadn't used a bank in decades, except for checking. Because they can't, with their, when you take a loan and pay back a loan, that's when they're able to turn the majority of the money. So if we're practicing IBC, a lot of us, including myself, have said, oh, well, I'll stop using the banks when I get where I need to be. Those of us that are driven are never really going to get where we need to be. And so I have just decided in the last 2 years, I'm not arbitraging anything. I'm not going to use my policy for anything but a purchase of land or businesses or rental properties. But I don't even know if I want rental properties. Blech. Yuck. I'm kind of tired of them. I just have a couple and I'm kind of tired of them already. But I am not going to go to the bank. Instead, I will grow that portfolio in a much slower manner. And when I have the money paid back to do so, I am not going to do that by going to the bank and leveraging everything. Okay. In fact, I'm supposed to be getting a line of credit on some land that we bought, and it's paid for because I used up my policies. I have yet to go in and sign the paperwork because I just don't want to use the bank. Why? I can't. If I need the money, then I shouldn't be buying something if I need to go to the bank and buy it. That was Nelson's thought process. That's exactly where we need to be. Don't use the banks. Those were his 4 main principles. And then he threw a 5th one in at the end: rethink your thinking. And he talked about this a lot. It's all about the way you think. And if you think that this isn't going to work, or you think that you know it all, this isn't something for you. But we need to rethink our thinking. What is the noise telling us? And here's the thing. All this noise is saying you need to go to the market. You need to buy real estate. You need to do all of this stuff. But that's what everybody else is doing, right? And so do we need to go to the market? Is it working? Real estate works, but it only works for certain people. The market works, but it only works for certain people. Think about what you're being told. Think about what the government is handing us and telling us. And here's a new one that Nelson never got to encounter: TikTok. Nelson was good on the YouTubes, but he passed away before the TikToks came along, and Facebook and Instagram. So I'm going to pick on TikTok and Instagram mostly here, and I'm going to talk about algorithms. Rethink your thinking. If you look at one thing, it's going to show you more of that one thing. So you're going to think that that is how everybody thinks. You're going to think that is what everybody's doing. There is a book that I just got done reading. It's called Collective Illusions. This is exactly what this book is about, is the fact that we believe everybody thinks one way. We believe that, let's just take COVID, for example. We believed everything that we were seeing. Most of us, not all of us, believed everything we were seeing, believed we needed to do X, Y, and Z, believed we needed to wear a mask because that is all we saw. It was fear. It was fear mongering. It is the exact same thing in the financial sector. Collectively step back and think about those things. I, by nature, if everybody is doing something, I tend to not do that thing, or I tend to question it and look at another avenue. I'm going to look, I'm going to investigate it, because I just am not much of a follower. I just don't always trust anybody. I rarely trust anybody, frankly. I want to do the research. Okay, I want to know how things started, where they started, why they started. I always have lots of questions. And we all should be doing that. Rethink the thinking. Why should I be putting money in a 401k? Is that going to be the best spot for my money? Probably not. If I am starting a business, if I am starting an operation, a farming operation, should I be using that money to expand my operation, to buy some land, to farm, to start the business, to buy a business? Why is that money sitting in an investment account I can't get to till I'm 59 and a half? Rethink our thinking. Challenge what we are being taught in schools. We're not all robots. Here's another one, and I say this a lot. And I just talked about it while I was in Nashville. And ironically, I saw a TikTok about it. And I'm going to say ironically because it didn't show up right away. So TikTok was not listening to me. But I saw a TikTok, a doctor talking about this, that in school, we have levels, right? That these kids are A and B and these kids are C and D and F, and the kids that are C, D, and F are going to get nowhere in life. Guess what child I was? The C, D, and F child. Well, I wasn't even a C child. I was probably a D and F child. I mean, it was bad. I went to school to socialize. I do not have a learning issue. The school system has a teaching issue. They don't teach to all kinds of learners. They teach to one, and it is the child that can memorize, and it is the child that can absorb through lecture. That is not how I learn. And so for many years, I thought I had a learning issue. No. Rethink your thinking. I don't have a learning issue. The school system has a teaching issue. They have a labeling issue. We have a labeling issue with everything we do in this country, in my opinion. Oh, if you have one tiny little issue, we're going to label you. Holy moly. How about instead of labeling, we empower you and give you the tools to move forward in life and give you what you need? No, instead we're going to label you and just label you, right? Maybe give you some medication to cover that up. Sometimes that's needed, but not the majority of the time. So think about what you're feeding your brain day in and day out. Chances are, because you're listening to this podcast, it's really good stuff. But if you are a talk radio person, or if you listen or you're around people that listen to a lot of talk radio, AKA my husband, he loves talk radio. I hate it. At any given moment, he thinks the world is collapsing. Remove yourself. Get rid of the junk. Fill your head full of good things, and good things will come out of that. Think about what we're doing. Think about what we're being fed and what's the agenda behind it. Now, I sound like a crazy lunatic. Label it as you like. Okay, you guys, that was my big takeaways from Think Tank. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. There is no better time of the year for me than when I get to sit down with colleagues and visit with them. And it is extremely, extremely exhausting, but it is awesome. Awesome. I hope that that brought you back to the basics of IBC as it brought me. If you are listening to this and you have gotten the book and you don't want to wait to see me, right now as I'm recording, I'm booked out 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. I highly encourage you to get the book, make your appointment, then read the book, because you'll have plenty of time to do so, okay? But do not, please don't go to your local agent who doesn't know crap about IBC. As I get booked out really far like this, you guys tend to start going to other people, which is fine if it's another IBC agent. And you have the opportunity to also meet with John on my team. Most of you don't want to do that. Most of you will schedule with me and wait. And I appreciate you for waiting. I really, really do. Those of you that don't wait, you better ask yourself, are you serious about your finances? Because I have seen so many incorrect policies from the agent that can't turn down the commission and says, oh, guess what? I know IBC. Did your agent that said, he or she knows IBC, know those 5 principles of Nelson's? Because if they don't understand IBC. They understand how to sell you life insurance, right or wrong, but they don't understand IBC. How are they going to be there to help you? and not just help you set up the policy, but help you use the policy, help continue teaching you. I'm not here just to sell a policy. I'm here to help teach you the concept, help you utilize the concept. As a client, you get access to me at no charge, okay? So please hang in there for the 6 weeks. We do have a waiting list. If you want to get on the cancellation list, let us know, maryjo@withoutthebank.com. If you have any comments, you want to tell me your story, please do. A lot of those emails are coming in. But get scheduled. At the end of the day, I cannot help you via an email. I am going to need more information. So if the question is, well, Mary Jo, what do I do? The answer is schedule the appointment. Okay. Thank you for the emails. If you have a podcast idea that you want to share, please do that as well. maryjo@withoutthebank.com. If you've not gotten my book, if you've not gotten Nelson's book, go to the website and get the book. All right. Have a great day, y'all.